Russia puts a missile monster on combat duty. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukrainian military has acknowledged yet another defeat on the battlefield, much later than the reality on the ground. Mr. Trump continues to undermine Europe's policy agenda through statements and controversial policies targeting the continent. Issues in detail shortly. Missile enters active service, stirring anxiety across Europe. Russia has revealed that the country's first air and missile defense regiment, equipped with the S-500 Prometheus system, has officially entered operational service. This marks a major milestone for Russia and a nightmare scenario for Ukraine as the war approaches a decisive phase. To understand the significance, we must first look at the track record predecessor, the S-400 Triumph, which entered in 2007. Wherever it was deployed, the S-400 reshaped the regional air defense balance. It was designed to counter aircraft, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles across various ranges and altitudes. It quickly gained a reputation for flexibility and layered defense. Network, combined multiple interceptor missile options, allows it a wide spectrum of threats within a single integrated architecture. The effectiveness of S-400 has been demonstrated not only in Europe, where its deployment NATO air operation planning, but also in South Asia. During a brief of the India-Pakistan conflict in mid-2025, Indian S-400 batteries reportedly played a central role in neutralizing aerial threats, shooting down 6 Pakistani aircraft. Against this S-500 represents a clear technological leap forward. Development of the S-510 with the goal of complementing rather than replacing the S-400. According to TASS, the system is designed to counter both tactical and strategic threats, particularly those operating at higher altitudes and speeds, such as low Earth orbit satellites and advanced ballistic missiles. S-400 introduces several key enhancements. It can long-range 40 N6M surface-to-air missile with a range of up to 400 kilometers, while the special 77 N6 interceptor missiles are designed to strike targets at distances of up to 600 kilometers. More importantly, radar architecture enables detection and tracking of threats far beyond the capabilities of previous systems. Independent Assessment Center for Strategic and International Studies suggest that S-500 radar components can detect ballistic targets at distances of up to 2,000 kilometers and aerial targets at around. As a result, the S-500 blurs the traditional boundary between air defense and missile defense. While the S-400 focuses primarily on aircraft and short-range ballistic missile threats, the S-500 is positioned to counter hypersonic vehicles and targets in near space. Broader changes in military doctrine, where space and near space are increasingly viewed as contested domains. Ukraine admits it while concealing the Nearly Russia's Ministry of Defense announced the capture of Seversk on December 11th. Ukraine's general staff finally acknowledged the loss of. While Ukrainian soldiers on the battlefield, senior commanders continued to present the situation. A statement posted on the Ukraine staff's Facebook page claimed that fierce fighting was still ongoing in the Seversk area, noting Russia's significant manpower and equipment. It stated that Ukrainian forces had to preserve soldiers' lives and combat effectiveness. The statement further claimed that the city remained under Ukrainian fire control, assertion few observers believe. Seversk was lost on December 11th, continued to frame the withdrawal as a deliberate decision to save lives. Ukrainian has rarely ordered withdrawals, let alone ones motivated by troop preservation. Often forced to hold predetermined positions until collapse, with withdrawals occurring only in chaos after all options are exhausted and losses mount. Poor and Minigrads. In truth, there was no withdrawal from Russian forces reportedly seized using small unit infiltration tactics, forcing Ukrainian defenders to flee under heavy losses. The delay in acknowledgment with internal Ukrainian sources, indicating that frontline commanders struggle to report real-time conditions, with battlefield maps often updated days or even a week. Even areas firmly under Russian control are frequently labeled as gray zones, Ukrainian authorities. Escalation in the energy war. Ukraine, meanwhile, is desperately striking Russia's energy sector while facing intense pressure from Washington to make serious concessions toward a peace deal. December 23rd, Ukrainian drones targeted a refinery in Russia's Stavropol region. Suggest partial success, with Russian authorities confirming efforts to intercept the drones. However, attacks on Russian oil and energy infrastructure have declined compared to last month. likely significant strike is met with heavy Russian retaliation against Ukraine's critical infrastructure. The latest strike, launched early on December 12th, targeted energy facilities in central and western Ukraine as part of a systematic winter campaign to weaken Ukraine's rear. A total of 580 34 cruise missiles struck key hubs to Brody, Khmelnytsky, Vinnytsia, Lviv, Zhytomyr. Ukraine's Ministry of Energy confirmed that the Rivne, Ternopil, and Khmelnytsky regions were almost completely without power, putting immense strain on the country's supply systems. When every megawatt matters, such attacks affect not only household electricity, but Ukraine's ability to sustain frontline operations, manufacturing, and logistics. Oil for Western aid shipments remains a top Russian target. A recent cargo vessel flying the Lebanese flag and carrying Ukrainian soybeans. In other words, Ukraine at its weakest point, money. Despite 90 approved European aid, Ukraine faces severe financial shortages. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce activity at Odessa's ports has dropped by 50%, with some ports temporarily shut down, most relying on generators. Grain and oilseed exporters are hundreds of millions of dollars each month. If attacks continue at this intensity, face severe risks, directly undermining Ukraine's financial stability and stripping away one of its few remaining revenue streams. At this pace, Kyiv will soon rely entirely on external financial aid. Under pressure, Greenland. Finances deteriorate. The EU agreed to raise €90 billion through joint borrowing over the next 2 years to cover Ukraine's military and budgetary needs. Unlike support will be financed through EU debt. According to EU member states will full interest burden, about €3 billion from 2028 onward, with initial payments of €1 billion as early as 2027. With no substantial revenue source, repayment will fall on nations already under strain. At the same time, growing internal fracture under pressure not only from Russia, but also from the United States. With budgets projected to reach 3% of GDP and public debt rising to 93%, Europe's ability to support Ukraine is increasingly in question. Tensions escalated further on December 23rd. Donald Trump reaffirmed Washington's claim over Greenland, a special envoy to the island. Diplomatic response from Denmark. Greenlandic leaders issued a joint statement reaffirming sovereignty and international law, declaring it belongs to its people and cannot be annexed under any pretext. Yet trend of backing down, framing Greenland as a U.S. national and global security due to its Arctic strategic value. What Europe wanted is now taking the shape of concrete policy. Why does Macron want to? Against this backdrop, why does President Macron want to meet President? According to Politico, Paris will best approach for talk between the two leaders. This follows Macron's role in blocking the EU from seizing €210 billion in frozen Russian assets, effectively reopening dialogue with Moscow under the same pretext that ended in 2022. Russia would lose and pursued a hardline approach. Paris believes Russia is gaining the upper hand, especially as Trump distances Washington from Kyiv and pushes to end the war. Economic crisis, the U.S. pulling back to focus on China, and Europe facing internal instability, France finds itself isolated. Macron's outreach to signal rapprochement, but rather a return to basis management diplomacy, aimed at preventing uncontrolled. Whether this represents pragmatic strategic realignment, one clear. Europe during a period of profoundity, and traditional assumptions no longer hold. That concludes today's commenting, and see you in our program.